What is up? This is Graham Tuttle, the Barefoot Sprinter. Today, talking about sandbags. So, sandbags are like my new obsession. I love them. They are like the best thing ever. I don't know exactly why, but they just feel so natural. I think it's because the body functions on this internal and external torque, which is that when you punch and throw and kick, there's an internal torque where the big muscles create all this force as you're driving through. And a lot of it is creating strength in the core, and you're coiling around to create this capacity of your body to work as a system. And that means you're basically pulling the weight of a sandbag into your body and basically adding it into your center of mass. And it feels very natural. For years, I would try to lift with barbells, I'd do the squats, the deadlifts, and I always had these like repetitive back injuries, like disc injuries, and every few months I'd have a pop and I'd be out for a few weeks. And I'm not blaming the barbell for that. I just think I didn't know how to use or brace my core. So the problem is that, and again, this is my hypothesis right now, but when you get under a barbell, or if you have to pick one up, you kind of have to guess how much core activation you need. So you kind of really brace down, or you don't do enough, because there is a passive capacity for the barbell to sit on your shoulders, and then you can kind of relax and just use the stacked up compression elements of your passive tissue to stabilize you. But when you're picking something up off the ground that is it's like a real object, like if you have to pick up a cup, you have to adjust for the weight as you pick it up. You say, I think it's that much, and you're gonna pick it up, but your body adjusts rapidly. With a sandbag, when you get under a sandbag and you kind of pick it up, your body is like turning up the volume to exactly what you need. So what I found is, even though I'm picking up a 250-pound sandbag, my core isn't as active as I thought it would be relative to a 225-pound deadlift where I'm really locked in. So what I think I've figured out is that by moving with sandbags and really picking things off the ground, A, it's improved my mobility, but B, it's improved my functional core stability. So the negotiation with something like an unwieldy object is so valuable, because now instead of thinking like 100, like trying to guesstimate how much core activation I need, I just let my body figure it out. I think sandbags are so integral for having a healthy body. And I think there's a reason a lot of people get into this kind of functional martial arts, kicking, throwing stuff. They really love clubs, maces, sandbags, because it uses your body. And it's an intuitive thing. I give my dad, who's 65 years old and has Parkinson's, I throw a sandbag in his arms and say, hey, squat this, carry this. He gets it. It's fine. So we're going to cover a little bit today about how to use sandbags. And we got a few different options because, like people, sandbags come in many sizes and shapes and colors. There are the big, heavy ones that are long and unwieldy. They're the short, stone, strongman type. They're the training bags with a lot of handles and like the hot dog looking ones. And then sometimes you get really heavy medicine balls. And the medicine balls are like these, a more codified object, but sometimes you get ones that are big and they have to wrap your arms around. Sometimes they're just smaller, you have to hold them. A lot of different objects and ways to get around this. But obviously, these are all softer versions of something like an Atlas stone or like a heavy concrete stone that you have to work around. So those are great and they're fine, but they're just not very comfortable and they're kind of awkward and you don't want to drop them so they'll break. So I'm a big fan of sandbags, but we're going to cover a very simple technique of how to pick them up. And I think once you understand this, you'll have a lot more confidence to be able to play with one, especially if you go to the gym and they maybe have a few that are over in the corner, you've never really used them before. Now we can start to do it. Because once you can pick it up and get it to your chest or your core, squats, lunges, overhead presses, carries, and everything is on the table. So a very simple option for you to get under a bag, and I'm going to show you how to do it with some different sized ones. So first and foremost, we'll start with the simple one. So let me get some of these out of the way. This is a 100-pound sandbag. So a lot of these, you'll notice a few different companies will have them. This is the same company, same type, this one, but as they get heavier, so this is 250 pounds, this is just 100 pounds. They go down to 25 pounds and 50 pounds. Typically, if it's under 100 pounds, a lot of people will opt for something like this, which has a lot of handles. I don't know what to call them, but you can kind of use the handles to get around and hold it in different angles. You can do swings and stuff like that. I'm not against that. I think handles are great and a lot of options. But I think a lot of the value comes from the fact that you're using your hands and your fingers to actively work and grip. And you're using, more importantly, the forearm and the actual tissue of the arm to wrap around something. I think that's really important when it comes to learning how to use something, because in life, we don't always have handles. So being able to use and use something with your forearm, there's a lot more proprioceptive feedback to your torso and your chest and these bigger muscles. So when we look at something like this, which is just a typical strongman stone bag, about 100 pounds, what you want to think is that your goal is to get this thing into your center of mass. Now, the hardest part is getting it off the ground. And if for years we've been told this, don't let your back bend, keep your spine straight, we're afraid of spinal flexion. But the reality is you have so many redundant layers of feedback with your spine that make it a safe, very robust structure. Meaning you have obviously your abdomen, your core muscles, your transverse abdominis, rectus abdominis, your obliques, and then you have your erectors up your back. Those are large global muscles that stabilize your spine. But around every vertebrae, you have a bunch of muscles, small little baby muscles that wrap around each vertebrae going all the way up, like stitching. Then you've got ligaments, you've got connective tissue, you've got these global muscles like your pecs, your lats, your psoas, your glutes, all the muscles of your thighs. They create a very robust structure for your body to work together. And so when you're using those, you're not putting the force in any one piece. But if you focus on keeping your back super stiff and straight, you're over leveraging one specific fulcrum point. So by working on a sandbag, our goal is to think, I just want to get this thing into my center of mass. The hardest part of a sandbag lift is just getting it off the ground, getting that first inch. So, like a first date, you want to have a negotiation with this. You want to get to know the thing you're going to try and pick up. What that means is, I might not pick it up on the first go-round, but I will kind of push it around and move it. Maybe I'm organized in the sand, but I'm really just getting a feel for what this thing is. And just like if I go to pick up a cup, I'm going to go feel it, and I kind of squeeze it with my fingers to pick the thing up and kind of feel how much it is, and then you lift it and move towards your face. So with the sandbag, I'm going to kind of pick it up. I might just do a little lift, and I'm using this to try and get a more confident feel for what I'm doing here. So you'll notice here, as I get underneath it, I'm there, and I'm using this. You notice that I'm keeping the arms here, but I'm pushing with my legs. I'm pushing the ground away, using my glutes to lift and extend. So my core generally does stay flat. I'm not trying to get stuck in this, but I'm also not worried about keeping this back extended all the way through the motion. So I'm getting under here, moving the weight around, trying to get as much of my hand underneath this as possible. Because the more I can kind of wrap this, the more of a grip I can get with my forearm. So I'm pinching into the whole structure. I'm lifting and just getting this little baby motion under your belt of being able to lift and push away with the ground, gets you some momentum. Because that's important, because once we get some momentum, our next goal is to catch it on our thighs. We're going to get the weight up and then pinch in and catch that here. So our goal is to catch it on the thigh with the legs pinched in and squeeze it between our torso. We'll lift, up, and then there. So I can use my arms to get in here, walk the feet in, and reassess it on my chest. So now this thing is good. I can even let go if I need to. And that gives me the ability to hold it tight. So you notice from the front, I'm here. You'll watch my knees up. They don't necessarily step in at first because it's a short movement, but I'm squeezing my knees in, reassessing and pulling it in. Then, once I get that, I get a tight grip. Maybe big, so all you're gonna get is your fingertips, but you're gonna get a tight grip, pull this in, and then squeeze it in as you stand up. That standing up is probably the most physically difficult part on the first time because you haven't fully brought it in to your torso. And once you have it up, now it's good. Now this is part of my center of mass. This is part of my body. I can squat, I can do marches, and eventually there's more advanced movements like getting it up to your shoulder. But you just notice that as I hold this thing the whole time, I have to have tension. It's difficult. You get out of breath. So whatever your starting weight is, that's what you're going to develop a skill set with, just a comfort level. When I first started doing sandbags, the 100-pound one felt scary. It felt like a lot. So I'd mess around with these. And you'll notice that these give you a little bit more of a grip. So maybe I can kind of get there and use the handles to pinch it in, get a little bit better feel for this. There's different ways you can hold this. There's no right or wrong, but this is a little bit lighter. It's like a 40 or 60-pound bag. So you can kind of get a feel for using your body and controlling some of these pieces. But typically, if you have a longer one, it's the same exact process. You kind of get in the middle, stand up, you come in, you pinch with your legs, you hug it, you stand up. Different dynamics because there's a different length of it, but your goal in the same way is to just get confident, being able to pinch something, hold it together, lift up, negotiate with it, pinch, lift, and move. It's that process there. Obviously with these, you can use the handles, they go underneath to hold. A lot of good value for this. But to understand that this is just getting you in the game. These are little baby ones. They're fun. They're training ones for long distance. But the real fun happens when you take the handles off and start to work with the heavy stuff. The only difference is going to be for larger objects, you're trying to grab and get your whole body wrapped around it. So you notice that these larger ones, which are also true of bigger sandbags, same idea. I might get in here and lift, get the hands up. But you notice that it's a challenge here because I can't get my hands all the way around it. Now this isn't a heavy one, it's not like 60 pounds, but I'm grabbing my fingers, standing and holding. And now this really stretches your torso all the way out because you have to get your hands around it. Now, the beauty of this is, even though I'm in a gym that has a lot of these sandbags and different options and I can play with them, there are an infinite number of options in the world. And the real value of this is learning to have confidence in playing with different things. Because you'll notice, if it's skinny or narrow or has handles, great, let me use that. If it's, like let's say a normal size bag, I'm just gonna get this. I can carry this, get to my shoulder a lot easier. So the option's there. If it's really big and heavy, then this is a great option for something like walking lunges or overhead stuff, because I have to really wrap my arms around it. And this is doing great work for my lats, my upper body, and my back, and my shoulder blades. So keeping that in mind is that every object presents its own difficulty, and it also presents its own opportunities. So last thing I'm going to cover is how to get into some of the bigger boys. Now, I'm not super accomplished with this. I mean, I know some of these monsters out there picking up like 300-400 pound bags. This is just 250, but the rhyme and reason to it is the same. And so it's just a matter of developing confidence. It's going to be, if you have a big sandbag at your gym or something you're working up to, it's just going to sit there. It's going to look at you in the eyes and say, hey, you can't pick me up. Hey, I'm too big for you. But you're going to eventually come up and say, no, I'm not going to give up on this. So your goal is to assess the object. You come in, you lean it, you move it. The hard part with larger ones that are longer is you have to clear the gap between your knees. So there is a lifting up, a hip extension. You can bring your knees in so you can get it over your knees, and it's the same process. So I'm going to see if I can pull this off. But the idea is it might not happen the first time, but you get underneath as much of a hug as you can. You lift up, and you see how I walk in, the feet underneath, you get a tight grip, holding it, and you push up. And so once you have it, now I can walk, I can carry, I can do a squat. I gotta tell you, these squats are amazing because the weight just pulls you right down into the perfect squat. Coming out of it's harder, but that's the idea. So you'll just notice the process is the same. Hug, lift, and then extend. It's a fight. But that's the beauty of the whole thing, is that when you can get confident picking up something that weighs as much as a big human being, there's not much else you're really going to worry about. So if you have sandbags, please use them. If you don't have one, it's the single best thing you could buy for a high value piece of equipment that will then give you the ability to train wherever. A few times a day, pick up a sandbag, get in that habit, keep it in your garage. The best thing you could ever purchase is a multi-use gym tool. And when you buy a sandbag, you buy the bag, you fill it with sand. So if you move, you have to leave, you dump the sand out. Sand costs like $5 for 50 pounds. So it's a very cheap thing you can take with you for life. So get a quality one, and it will last you for life, and it'll make you a body that will last for life. So that's it for today. Remember, the Barefoot Sprinter told you, get a sandbag, get a sandbag. If you have any questions, make sure to comment below. Thank you so much. Share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.